Are you thinking about starting a workout program but you don't know how to go about it? Like you're not sure if you should run, do yoga, or join a gym? And if you do join a gym, what should you do? Run on a treadmill? Lift weights? Work out on machines? Well, I'm going to argue two things. One, strength training is probably the best thing you can do, both for your health and for generally improving the quality of your life. And two, it doesn't require joining a gym and it doesn't have to be complicated. You can do a really good strength workout without leaving home and with minimal equipment. And you can do it using only 4 basic exercises. And one of those 4, the one that I think is the most important, is something that many fitness people don't emphasize or overlook entirely. Okay, you may have noticed from my intro that I am a gymnastics/calisthenics guy, but that is not the topic of this video. This video is about working out and strength training generally, and what I'm going to say applies equally to people who are older, to people who have been sedentary and who are thinking about starting a workout program for the first time, and to people who are quite advanced. You can go a very long way with basic exercises and a very simple workout program. Now to start with, everyone should train strength. Other forms of exercise are also beneficial, but if you were just going to do one thing, strength training is probably your best bet. It's probably the single most beneficial workout modality. Why do I say that? There are several reasons. One is that strength training tends to work everything at once. You will get a cardiovascular workout when you train strength. Not as intense as when you run, say, but some. And it turns out that you don't need a lot of intense cardiovascular training to keep your heart healthy. If you do some strength training 2 or 3 times a week, even for just half an hour, and you maintain a healthy weight, and you take a couple of brisk walks per week, your general health will be fine. Also, strength training is not as hard on your joints as the most popular form of exercise, running. Now I know, I'm the last person who should be saying that given my recent videos about how I've messed up my rotator cuff. But I would never advise people to do what I do, especially at my age. That would be crazy. In fact, you should probably do the exact opposite of what I've done up until this point. But anyway, you can train strength effectively and safely if you do it in a reasonable way. But I want to make a utilitarian argument for the value of strength training, and specifically for the type of training that I advocate. And I want to do that by comparing it to another really good type of exercise, swimming, which is by all accounts a fantastic way to exercise. It's a whole body workout, it's great for both cardiovascular and for strength, and it's not hard on the joints. So from all those general health considerations, it's hard to beat swimming. However, it does have one big disadvantage. There's no direct parallel between swimming and the kinds of things that you do in your daily life. There's no situation in your life other than swimming where you do something like this. With traditional strength training, you can train movements that directly mimic movements that you use in daily life, and you can train functions that tend to deteriorate as you age. And that is the primary reason why I advocate for this type of training. Nothing against swimming or any other form of exercise. If you love to swim, you should swim. Now, you don't need to train too many different types of movements to get an effective whole body workout that trains all of the major muscle groups and the most important functions. And it turns out that the really useful movements are things that require minimal equipment and are not too difficult to do at home. Of course, the idea that you only need a few basic movements is not original with me. In fact, virtually every other workout or fitness channel has a video along these same lines. However, I have a slightly different take on it than most people. So, what are the movements? Well, some people argue that you need 3 basic movements: push, pull, and squat. And others say there are 4 basic movements: push, pull, squat, and hinge. But there are also 7 primal movements. Or is it 6? I've also seen as many as 22. You could probably pick a number, and somebody out there claims that that is the correct number of basic movements. Obviously, to some degree, it's a matter of opinion. But having said that, here are the basic movements that I think are the most useful and that I think everyone should train: push, pull, squat, and lift. Notice that these are movement patterns, not specific exercises. Each one can be trained using several different exercises, all of them being big bang for the buck compound movements that also involve balance, coordination, and core stabilization. Of the 4 of them, lift is the one that calisthenics people almost never include in their list of most important exercises, possibly because you can't do it with only your body weight. But to me, lift seems like the most important one. Lift is like a combination of squat and hinge, but it's done with added weight. It works most of the muscles in your body, and it directly trains the useful function of lifting something off the floor. And it's important to note, all of the exercises I'm going to describe are scalable to any level, meaning that they can be made as easy or as difficult as necessary. Some version of all of them can be done by someone at virtually any level of strength or fitness. So, taking them in order of their popularity, but not their usefulness, first we have pushing exercises. Push simply refers to any compound exercise that involves pushing with your hands. It primarily works the triceps, chest, and shoulders. The most basic exercise is the push-up, and obviously it's the one that's easiest to do with no equipment. If you're not strong enough to do push-ups, you can make them easier by doing them against a raised surface. Try to start at a level of difficulty where you can do at least 5 with good form. Another good place to start is a simple plank, which is by itself quite a good pushing exercise. And if you need more of a challenge, there are also push-up variations that are quite difficult. And of course you can always add weight. You could do only push-up variations and become very strong, if that was your goal. Push-ups are a horizontal pushing exercise. You can also do downward vertical pushing exercises such as the dip, and upward vertical pushing exercises such as overhead presses. Of course, these exercises require some sort of equipment. Dips require either rings or dip bars. Pressing can be done with a barbell, obviously. Of course, for home use, dumbbells or a sandbag are a better option. I've recently acquired a sandbag, and I find it to be an incredibly versatile and useful piece of workout equipment. Alright, next we have pulling. Pulling primarily uses the biceps, the shoulders, and the middle and upper back. Unfortunately, there's no way to do any kind of pulling exercise without some piece of equipment. If you want to be able to do a full body workout at home, you're probably going to have to get something that you can hang from. It doesn't have to be expensive or complicated though. There are many options for bars and other things that can be clipped to a door frame. I would strongly recommend getting a pull-up bar and something like rings. This one from Amazon only costs $24. It hangs from a doorway, but you don't have to screw it in, so it's very convenient. And it includes hanging straps that are like rings, which allows you to do rows. You can even do push-ups and pseudo dips on it. Anyway, the classic vertical pulling exercises are pull-ups and chin-ups. Obviously you should do those if you can, but many people aren't strong enough to do them. If you have rings or something like rings, then you can do rows, which is a horizontal pulling exercise but which can also be a substitute for and an easier version of pull-ups. You can see that by adjusting the height of the rings and the angle of your body, you can adjust the difficulty of rows. If you're upright enough, rows can be made so easy that anyone can do them. Another really good option for a pulling exercise is the bent over row. For this, you can also use dumbbells or a sandbag. If you're going to do these, make sure to keep your legs bent a little and pull your abdominal muscles in to protect your back. Okay, that's the fun stuff. Push and pull exercises for the upper body. That's how you get jacked, right? That's the part everybody looks at. No one would put together a whole body workout without including push and pull exercises. But that is not the most functional stuff. I don't mean to criticize anyone. I'm more guilty of this than most. I've probably spent 90% of my workout life working on my upper body. I obsess over gymnastic strength moves like the front lever and the planche, which are not only not functional, they're downright dangerous. The exercises that are really functional, that will provide the biggest benefit to your quality of life and to your long-term health, are the exercises that involve your legs. Having said that, the third category is squat. Why is it so important? Well, from a weight training standpoint, the squat is often viewed as the single most important exercise. Most weightlifters say that the squat recruits more muscle groups than any other single exercise, and therefore it's the most valuable exercise for generally building strength. But squatting is also very functional for everyday life, and so it's extremely valuable from a practical standpoint. Older people start to have difficulty getting up out of the bathtub or getting up out of a chair. There are lots of people who are 60 years old who cannot get up from a kneeling position on the floor under their own power. The ability to comfortably raise your body using your legs is a critical function that you do not want to lose as you age. And even if you're young and strong now, it's very beneficial to strengthen this function because if you start from a higher point, the decline will take longer. And if you train it, you'll maintain it. So I hope I've convinced you of the value of the squat. Now, how should you train it? Well, starting at the more beginner side of things, many people are not able to do a bodyweight squat, and that's perfectly fine. Again, it's scalable to any level. you can make squats easier by squatting down to a chair or some other solid surface. This surface can be as high as you need it to be. And of course, you can hold on to something for balance if you need to. Then, as you get stronger, you can gradually squat lower and hopefully work your way up to doing full squats. Another big obstacle is ankle flexibility. The best way to improve this is simply to do squats. Practice them going as low as you can, and your ankles will gradually loosen up, allowing you to go deeper. You can also use something to raise your heels off the floor. For ordinary people who just want to be in shape and train strength, who are not trying to become strength athletes, bodyweight squats are just fine. If you can do 3 sets of 10 reps of bodyweight squats, you're way ahead of the general population. And if you maintain that, you'll never not be able to get up out of a chair. If you want to take it further, it's pretty easy to add relatively small amounts of weight to squats. As a practical matter, you can relatively easily add about 100 pounds of added weight without needing a barbell and a squat rack. More if you really want to. And let me tell you, if you can do 15 reps of full squats holding 50 pounds, you won't be a powerlifter, but you'll have very strong legs. And doing squats will also help strengthen your knees and ankles and help prevent injury as you age. And the fourth category is what I'm calling lift. Why is this important? First, like squatting, deadlifting is often considered to be the most important single exercise in weight training. It recruits more muscles and so on. I don't know which one of them is actually the most important, but they are certainly the 2 most important exercises for general whole body strength. They both involve the legs and the whole posterior chain, of course, but lifting and squatting with added weight both also involve the upper body. You can't really be good at either of these exercises without being strong all over. Anyway, from a practical standpoint, I would argue that lifting is probably even more important than squatting. Now, I'm not talking about deadlifting per se. I'm talking about lifting generally. I would argue that some kind of training at lifting things off the ground is the most important and most functional thing you can train, period. Why? Well, we all have to sometimes lift things off the floor. That is one strength-related thing that everybody has to do sometimes. And it is the one that probably gives more people more trouble than any other activity. Old people have heart attacks while attempting to lift things, and it's very common even for young people to throw their backs out while lifting. And I just want to stop for a minute and respond to an objection that I'm sure is coming. I can't train deadlifting because I have a bad back. Well, I hear you, and trust me, I've been there. I know my experience is just anecdotal, but let me tell you, few people have a worse back than I do. I first threw out my back when I was 17, and by the time I was 30, 2 of my discs had been herniated so many times that they were nothing but scar tissue. There were years of my life that I mostly spent laying on a couch trying to rest my back, convinced that I would never do anything athletic ever again. And I can tell you that the things that finally started to make my back better were movement and strength training. The more strength training that I've done, lifting specifically, the better my back has gotten. I think that everyone should train lifting, especially if you have a bad back. And if you don't have back problems, training lifting will help keep it that way. Okay, so how do you do it? First of all, don't do anything that hurts. If your back is currently compromised, then don't do this. Start with something very light if you feel that you need to. As with everything else that I've talked about, lifting is scalable to any level. You can go as light as you need to, and you can adjust the height according to your abilities. But what you want to aim for is something similar to deadlifting. You want to pick something heavy up off the floor. You can use books, weights, a big rock, or a box filled with bricks. And if you want to buy a piece of workout equipment, again, my best recommendation is a sandbag, which can be used in many different ways. I favor a combination of a deadlift and a loaded carry. For a long time, I did this using weights and a weighted vest. I would lift the whole thing off the ground, then carry it across the yard. I used bricks to set the weight on so I wouldn't risk crushing my fingers. After getting the sandbag, I came up with a better way to do this. I deadlift it, then set it on my legs and squat down, grasp it with an under-over grip, stand up and carry it. I set it down the same way, controlling it at all times. This is similar to how you might pick up something heavy and carry it, like a bag of cement. That's why I think that this type of training is so valuable. However, keep in mind, if you're going to train lifting, be careful to stay within your limits and progress very slowly so that you don't hurt yourself. And let me just say a word about form here. When you're lifting something heavy off the ground, try to use good form. That is, keep your back as straight as possible and lift with your legs. But you don't have to have perfect form. If you're trying to deadlift 500 pounds, then perfect form really is important. But if you're trying to lift an awkward 50-pound box off the floor, there's no way to do that with perfect form. You will end up lifting with your back and lifting with a rounded back to some extent. There's nothing wrong with that. Your body is designed to do that when lifting reasonable amounts of weight. In fact, I think it's beneficial to train it that way as long as you're careful. When I do my lifts with the sandbag, I lift it off the ground with a straight back, but when I stand up, my back is rounded. That seems safe for me, and it allows me to train both styles. So that's my recipe for a functional whole body strength workout. Push, pull, squat, and lift. All of them are basic movements which can be done pretty easily in your home with minimal equipment. And all of them will train balance and coordination as well as strength. Of course, this is not a training program for elite athletes, but this is a really great way to work out for ordinary people who want to be in shape, build some strength, muscle, and bone density, and enhance their quality of life. And this video is not about programming, but let me just put up a couple of example workout programs for beginners. These are just examples and they're very general. You'd have to adjust these based on your own circumstances. As a beginner, you can improve for quite a long time using beginner programs like these. And if you stuck with this type of program forever, your progress would eventually taper off, but you'd at least maintain or maybe make very slow progress. And if you wanted to take things further, you could move to a more advanced training program. Thanks for watching. I hope there's some people out there who find this video useful. Let me know in the comments if you have questions about any of this or if you want me to go into more detail on anything. Also, let me know if you think I'm a complete idiot and you think I've got everything wrong. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Good luck with your training, and I'll see you in the next video.